they do say that most of the Christmas hits are the classics. They're from 15, 20, 25 years ago, and it's really rare to find a song that might make it into the classics list. I really like that one. I really like it. That was Meghan Trainor and Jimmy Fallon. Wrap me up. I am in the studio with, I suppose you're a bit of a classic. I first interviewed this man a year and 3 months ago, and possibly your first radio interview, Matthew.
Yeah, in connection with the sport.
In connection with the sport.
Yeah.
Matthew is El Vikingo, the Tenerife Viking, as you're called, but you're English and you're from Granadilla. Miley is with us as well. Miley, do you want to say hello? Get right into the microphone.
Hi.
Hi, Miley. How are you?
Good.
Good. You're Matthew's daughter, and if you want to join in the chat later on, you can do so. You don't have to, okay? But I'm glad you're here. Matthew, before we go back, because I want to go back and remind people of who you are and how you got to where you are, tell me about your most recent trip. You've just come from the States.
Yeah, so we've been in America for the last 2 weeks. It was a planned trip, but not a planned trip at the same time. So basically, after one of my competitions in the summer, I got an invitation to the World Finals, which is
That's kind of amazing.
Yeah, it's the biggest level of the sport for my category, which is obviously a Masters over 40 category. Everyone's heard of the World's Strongest Man.
Yeah.
That's like the elite level strongman.
But
so this World Final is the top level for everyone else. So they have weight categories, there's men there, there's women there. So for everyone that's not what you would call an opens man, which is a man under 40 heavyweight class,
right,
that's the world final. It's the highest level you can get.
Okay, so hang on, this is where I need to wind back. When I spoke to you less than a year and a half ago, you had just competed in your first competition and you came second in Spain's strongman competition. Am I right?
No, so the last time we'd thingy, I just won my first competition, but it was my second ever competition, and that was in the Spanish National League.
And you came.
So I won one.
That.
Yeah, it's a league. So there was four
rounds.
And I won one of the rounds. It was quite an upset because I beat the reigning champion.
And they didn't know who you were.
They didn't know who I was.
Who's this Brit from
To be
Tenerife?
fair, I didn't even know who I was at the time.
Fair point.
I was just there and I was having a go, and I convincingly won. And I was like, oh, actually, maybe I could do this.
Okay.
And it was at that point when things started to, progress forward.
All right. Well, since we've got there, I know your story a little bit, and I'm going to kind of rush into it because I'd like you to talk about it. Basically, years before that, when you were still in the UK, you had problems with your weight. Yeah.
I've always struggled with weight, even as a child. And then I went through spurts of losing weight, gaining weight, the typical yo-yo dieter basically, but without dieting. I was a trainer, so I would go to the gym and I would train really hard, and then I wouldn't for 6 months. And so basically when I reached 30, I got married and I lost all drive to go to the gym.
Okay.
Because I used to go to the gym to, look good for the girls.
Okay, so this was your pull.
Yeah, so then once you've got married, you don't feel the need to do that anymore. So I ended up ballooning up to nearly 200.
Some people are screaming at the radio going, don't be ridiculous.
But it's true. It's the only reason I used to go to the gym. Okay. I used to train the T-shirt muscles kind of thing, so my shoulders and my arms.
And you get the ribs and
Well, I never had that, but, but yeah, then when I got married, I just sort of settled into family life. I was a father, I was a husband, I went to work, and I just ballooned. I went up to 200 kilo at one point, which is 440 pound. And
apart from being big, it's bad for your health.
It's very bad, yeah. And I stayed around that weight. I yo-yoed up and down. A couple of times I've lost a big amount of weight. I've lost 50 kilo twice now.
Sorry, at this stage, were you still in the UK or were you living in Tenerife, Matthew?
So when I moved to Tenerife in 2018, I lost almost 50 kilo just because the lifestyle was so different. There weren't so much access to fast food and things like that. And I think on this island we're a lot more active because we have the sunshine.
We're
not locked up indoors because of the rain and the weather. Yeah. So we do more things, which is, it's good. And then slowly my weight started to increase again, and now obviously with COVID it ballooned back up because we was all sat at home doing nothing, eating, comfort eating. So in 2021 I decided, right, that's it, I'm not going to worry about dieting anymore. I'm just going to go and train because it's what I enjoy doing, lifting heavy weights, and I'm going to try and I had a goal of trying to do a strongman competition.
Okay, so 2021, that's when you, right, this is going to be my focus.
It was January 2021, just after Christmas. I was quite lucky to have some equipment at home that I'd been sort of buying.
And you're up in Grenadilla, you're not in a built-up area, you kind of have farmland, don't you?
I was in Cruz de Dia, so I'm up in the top of Grenadilla. So in the rain, the wind, the sleet, whichever we get up there, I was training 4 or 5 times a week, and I just sort of persevered and went through it.
Okay.
The weight came off quite quickly, and I realised I was actually quite strong. So then I signed up.
Yeah, because being big and being strong are two different things.
Yeah, completely. You've got big people, and they're, you know, you would say yes, they have power, but power in certain areas, you know, is a lot harder. So, for example, picking a weight up off the floor, some people are more predisposed to be able to do that.
And you need, again, as someone who has trained in gyms all her life, I'm one of those, go to the gym, stop. Yeah. But at least you learn things like how to pick up, bend your knees, you know, work from your core, even swimming, you know that. But that needs to be taught.
Of course. Because when I very first started back, I was, as I said, nearly closer to 200 kilo. Just getting to the floor was quite difficult. So my range of movement weren't ideal. So I was working with a coach, and we had to adapt to, you know, if you imagine, if you've ever seen anyone do a deadlift, you obviously...
That's when you're not lifting it above your head.
No, you're picking it up from the floor. So obviously your knees are quite close and your hands are down by your side. But when you've got a massive belly, that's going to restrict you getting down to the floor.
Yeah, I just remember that from being pregnant.
Yeah, so as much as you want to pick it up from the floor, you've also got like a big balloon in front of you, in between your knees and your chest to stop you from getting there. So, yeah, as I got lighter, things started to get a little bit easier. And
you at this stage, were you talking to coaches? Were you?
Yeah, I signed up with a coach quite quickly in February or March, I think. He was a powerlifting coach, so he just worked on me getting strong. But obviously, getting so strong so fast led to a lot of issues in my tendons.
Because your body was moving too quickly in a way?
So basically the muscles can be strong from years before. So so for example, when you're my daughter's age, if you build up a level of strength, it will kind of always be with you. But the tendons go back to normal really fast.
They're like an elastic, they spring back.
Yeah, so they don't get a lot of blood flow and things like that. So that's why you hear of a lot of people saying, oh, I've got the tennis elbow, I've got golfer's elbow. It's basically tendonitis. It's overuse of the tendon.
Okay, so they're not just trying to be posh.
Everyone can get it. Even people that I know
never picked
chefs,
up a tennis racket.
Yeah, I know chefs that have got I think it's golfer's elbow, they call it, just from the frying pan constantly all
it's
day
like
long.
I work on the computer, so I get RSI, I get repetitive strain injury.
Yes, very similar. So
that they need to be kind of trained out.
You have to be managed. So it's a lot more about how you recover more than how you train. Because a lot of people go in, they train really hard, and it's the typical thing that people do in the January after Christmas. They get back in the gym and they train as hard as they can. By the end of January, they've picked up an injury. Then they're sat on the sofa for another few weeks, and before you know it, the nice weather comes again, and they're like, oh, I'll sort it out later. And that's generally what happens.
Now, I mean, we're jumping. Again, we could spend hours chatting. So you said in 2021, you decided your goal was to weight train and to start competing. In only 2 years then, you ended up in the States being invited to... Now, I have a list here. This was 2023 results. Britain's strongest master, 5th. Spanish National League, 3rd. Iceland Log Lift Championship, 3rd. Iceland Strongest Man Open, 3rd. UK Strongest Master 2023 winner. What is this? This 18th Grand Prix International winner. That's just in a year.
Yeah.
And it's only 2 years after you started.
Yeah, so that's not even from January, because in January I finished off last season's competition. So I've done an extra competition on there that's not there. So my 2023 season started in May. So May. So May to December, that's when I've done 11 competitions.
And I mean, how come I don't mean this to sound rude, but how come you have become Spain's representative? Am I right that you are invited to represent Spain in these competitions, or Tenerife?
No, so I'm how do you say? I am invited as a person.
So you get you're an invited competitor.
Yeah, but they ask me who I represent.
Yeah.
Now, obviously I'm British, but I don't represent Britain because I represent where I live.
So you are allowed to say I represent Tenerife?
So I'm not allowed to represent Tenerife because Tenerife is not technically a country, even though, though we think we all think we are. Let's go for independence. Yeah. So I represent Spain. Even though I don't feel Spanish, I do feel like a Tenerife.
Okay, I love it. Yeah,
because
that's fair enough.
This has been my home for the last 6 years. It was my home when I was younger. It's the only place I've ever loved. Yeah. And I feel...
Wow, that's nice.
I feel as part of the community here as I've ever done anywhere. But you are El Vikingo.
I mean, the Spanish papers love you. And you took part in Spain's Got Talent.
I know, that was crazy, wasn't it?
And you got to the semi-finals.
I did.
I'm going to talk to you, Miley, in a minute. I want to hear your opinion of your dad.
Sadly, I had to pull out of that because I had the World Finals. And it was like, what do I want to be? Do I want to be an entertainer or do I want to follow my sporting goals?
Do you think, because the media love you, basically.
They love me, yeah. I think it's the image. I think most Spanish love Vikings.
But also you love the media.
Well, I think, as the French say, I've got a certain je ne sais quoi.
You certainly do, and I don't know what we're going to say about it in Spanish. Je ne sais pas, je ne sais quoi. But what was this? How did you get into Tenerife's Got Talent or Spain's Got Talent?
Without giving too much away, they messaged me. They asked me.
Has it been on yet? I'm just wondering. Yes, it has been.
It's been on. The semi-final.
So they asked you.
Yeah, so they was badgering me, not just asking me. They was bombarding me. I was getting multiple messages on my social media from different production people, and I was like, what do you want me to do? I'm not a talent person. Mm-hmm. I just, I'm a weightlifter. I lift heavy things. And then they broke me down. I put them in touch with one of my secretaries that are working with me. Yeah, and they basically paid for me to go out there and put on a show.
And you did.
And I did.
Yeah, I've seen you on some of your TV Canary clips too. You love it.
I love it. I love it. If you put a camera in front of me any time of the day, I'll come alive.
I'm afraid I only have a microphone. Miley, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What do you think of your dad now? Do you think... Is it sometimes embarrassing to see him on TV, or do you kind of think it's a bit impressive?
It is impressive, but sometimes at school it just feels embarrassing. And then people are like, oh my God, what is it like to have a dad on TV?
And do they kind of think that it stomps around the house being like Thor or being a strongman in the house the whole time? Because I think he's actually a bit of a teddy bear, is he?
He does stomp around, but no, they don't think that. I know when he's coming to my room anytime, I can hear him.
He can't sneak. He doesn't sneak, does he?
Footsteps like elephants.
And listen, I saw a photograph of you with a woman called Rihanna Lovelace.
Yeah.
So she's a female weightlifter, am I right?
Yeah.
So have you met her?
Yes.
And I wanted to ask your dad, I think women have this year really kind of entered the world of male. I'm not going to say male sports because it's not sports that have in the past
dominated sports
have in the past been seen as male sports. Yeah. But you say in weightlifting it's very equal.
It's some of my best friends in the sport are the women. I think because they're more common. The men, there's very much the macho. So in certain categories, this very much sort of dog eat dog. But whereas with the women, they have such a camaraderie. It's actually
really?
They cheer each other on. It's brilliant.
We're really great. We're great. Miley, women are great, aren't they?
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah.
So some of the women in the sport are the people that they cheer me on, and I'm like, do you know?
Because you're not macho dog eat dog.
No, I think people get that perception of me because they look at me. I'm 6'2". I'm currently around 150 kilos.
And you have a few little tattoos.
I've got a few tattoos,
and a bit of a beard.
Yeah, and people just assume that I'm some sort of big ogre, and it's like, no, I'm really not. This is more like how would you say, like a mask.
So who's hiding inside?
Probably a child, just a little bit older than Miley's age.
Which brings us very quickly and very nicely, because we're running out of time, to a man's club. You've set up a man's club in Tenerife because...
Well, I didn't set it up.
Okay, but the issue of men's mental health is very important to you.
So I come on board in the very early stages. I see it and I was like, I want to be involved in this because, you know, I kind of fixed myself, but other people don't have the drive or the knowledge to fix themselves with mental health. So I got on board just because I wanted to show people that even though I portray this, you know, larger than life image, I still suffer, you know.
But in your own blog you say, I struggle with anxiety, self-doubt, imposter syndrome at times, and also in my sport it's important to rest the week for a competition, which is where I am. This is where I begin to struggle, as my way of self-medicating my racing mind is to bury it in sport. So you have self-doubts all the time.
So I've recently been diagnosed with ADHD,
okay,
which is something I never knew I had, but now looking back it's like, how did no one know I had
Ka-ching.
it? Yeah. My son's got it, and that's how we found out, because I was like, well, he's a normal boy. I was exactly the same, and everyone's like, but that's not normal.
Okay.
So with ADHD you realise that there's a lot of things going on in the brain, because I'm an overthinker more than an over mover, which is most ADHD. So with that, obviously you get anxiety, you know, you always impending doom and, you know, sorts of things like that. But, sorry, I lost track of where we were.
So, sorry, just because you were saying like you've got ADHD, impending doom, you're a thinker, you overthink things.
Yeah. So obviously when there's big competitions coming up, I'm always like, oh my God, what if it goes wrong? What if this goes wrong? There was one therapist I actually spoken to, and she actually came to me and said, but what if it went right? And that really worked with me. I was like, wow, yeah, that's deep, because it's just a way of thinking. If you think everything's going to go bad, you're generally going to find out things are going to go bad. But if you flip the switch and go, what if things go right? And that's kind of what's happened to me this year. I've gone for everything within reach. I've gone to grab for, and once I've been there, I've actually gone, I couldn't do this
if you hadn't thought.
Yeah. And even at the world level, I really suffered with that. I wasn't going to go, and up till the last minute I hadn't even booked my ticket. So I booked my tickets on the Friday and I left on the Monday.
Oh, God. And you herniated your disc.
Yeah.
Right. We got David. Do you remember David? Because
yeah.
we did a translated interview, and this is Miley. David, say hello to Miley.
Hi, Miley.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
David's going to talk to us in 2 seconds about what's going on in Adeje.
Yeah.
Final question for you. One goal for 2024?
Is to win one of the big competitions. I'm no more going to be an also-ran.
You're going to be a winner.
Yeah, I'm leaving the imposter syndrome behind, and I'm proudly going to represent the Canary Islands.
That's brilliant.
At the top level.
And you'll come back with the cup.
100%.
All right. If you want to stay, we've only got a couple of minutes. Victor, let's play a little bit of music to relax. This is one of my favourites. This is Driving Home for Christmas.